Here's another. Now, I'm going to play this. He was asking you why you haven't tweeted out about enough about the Israel October 7th Hamas attack, right? And so whenever someone confronts us here at the show about, they go, "Oh, you support Hamas," I say, I don't support Hamas. You know who does support Hamas? Benjamin Netanyahu and the Israeli government, who have been giving them suitcases full of cash for the last 15 to 20 years, at least. So why would they be doing that? We all know why. But let me play this, and this is your response to him.
All right, everything's okay so far.
Now, to be clear, I am consistent on all matters. I do not want America involved whatsoever in anything that is happening in Israel. I don't want my dollars sent over to Israel. We should not be supporting Israel. Obviously, Thomas Massey has done a lot of work showing how it doesn't even make economic sense that we have so much debt and yet we're sending money over to support Israel. And the biggest issue, by the way, that I have with Israel and talking about them being above reproach is the fact that they are supplying the arms to murder Christians. Okay. In Armenia, the oldest Christian country in the world. And yet nobody talks about that. For whatever reason, it seems to be the circumstance that when Jewish people die in Israel, it's wall-to-wall coverage. But when Christians die all over the world, nobody talks about it.
What?
Everyone wants to correlate everything to World War II. Everyone wants to talk about Adolf Hitler and rightfully so. He was a horrific person. But nobody wants to talk about Henryk Yagoda, right? Nobody wants to talk about the Bolsheviks. Nobody wants to talk about the Christian Holocaust. I am tired of the media, exhausted of the media not speaking about what is happening to Christians all around the world. And it is especially horrific while at the exact same time that it is happening, the slaughter of Christians in Armenia, the arms being supplied by Israel, that the media turns the other way and says, oh, okay, but what about what's happening in Israel? So you know what I'm asking for? Actual equality. Okay, because it seems like this is like a special category, the special relationship that we have. I'm a Christian first, okay? And so my concerns are going to be with what's happening to Christians all around the world, because it is us. We are the number one most persecuted religion in the world. And all Christians watching this need to realize the time is now to start speaking up, because we have been silenced about the things that are happening to us for a very long time. And the media is very clearly not our friend. When there is wall-to-wall coverage of Christians being killed in Armenia, Christians being killed in Nigeria, and the treatment of Christians in America and all across the globe today, then you ask me if I will use my platform and I will use my voice to speak about what's happening in Israel. How about that?
You may think that what I'm wearing right now is soft body armor. And
I don't know. I did think that actually, but thank you. Yeah, let's pause here anyway. So
wow.
Yeah, she is actually doing the Jewish Bolshevik thing, right? Like very blatantly. So, because like at the beginning of what we just watched, you have Jimmy Dore saying something that's like, fundamentally good-hearted, although he fucks up the details and ends up saying something that's not quite true.
The suitcases full of cash, is that based in anything?
I know what he's thinking of, but there's some telephone game between that and suitcases full of cash.
Okay. He's using poetic. Well, let's give him. He's using poetic license.
Yeah, I mean, what he really means is that Netanyahu kind of let Qatari payments to Hamas go through, and there's so it's not really that Israel was directly giving them money. It's that they were like letting Qatar give them money. And it is actually true that there's a clip Haaretz posted this back in October, November.
Right.
Like, hey guys, remember this? When Netanyahu was actually speaking to a Likud party meeting, and he's like, oh, you guys are objecting to letting these, Qatari payments to Hamas go through, but we need to, but it's important that Hamas be propped up so there isn't a two-state solution, basically, right? That is actually.
I remember that. Yeah. So that's what he's referring to with his.
So that's what he's referring to. He fucks it up a little bit because he's Jimmy Dore and he's.
I mean, he said Netanyahu as well, but okay. Sorry, low blow.
The man is, I think I'm on record here. I don't think that he is the sharpest knife in the bad neighborhood, but in any case, he said something that was sort of true, and he's basically on the right side of that one. So whatever, we'll give him a pass. And then Candace started saying, well, my big objection to Israel is killing Christians, which is a little funny too, because I don't know if Candace realized that they're Palestinian Christians, because you'd think that'd be the more obvious place to go with that, but because they're supporting, and this is true, right? Azerbaijan, against Armenia, right? Like, all true, right? She frames it in a super creepy way, right? But like, kind of fair enough as far as that part goes. It's like, yeah, I don't know why. And it's like, also like implicitly, it's like, okay, look, I wouldn't care that much about people being massacred if it was just Muslims, because hell with them.
I'm a Christian, so I care about Christians, is what she said.
Yeah,
we have to care about our ethnic group. It's really fucking sick thing to say if you only care about the death of your own.
Yeah, and also, by the way, right? Obviously,
religious group.
Yeah. Obviously, I don't. Yeah, right. I mean, yeah, I think it'd be fucked up in any direction, right? Like, if you were going to be like, oh, I only care about Jewish people getting killed, I don't care about non-Jewish people getting killed, or if somebody, whatever, right? Fucked up in every direction. And I also realized that I'm not well positioned to make this point because, I'm an atheist. I don't come from a Christian background, whatever. But like, yeah, I only care about Christians. That thing that Jesus was always telling people to only care about Christians, right? It's like, as we all remember the Sermon on the Mount, where he was like, yeah, what you do to the least of the people who believe in me, right? Everybody else can go fuck themselves.
My favorite part.
I'd be really curious to hear about her argument for why Christians are persecuted in the United States.
Yeah, sure. But okay, so she was like, oh, I care about Christians. She actually said, I'm Christians first before, and then she was like, I'm America first, which is also interesting. So do we care about Americans who aren't Christians? But interesting question. Inquiring minds want to know. But then the actually insane part went by so quickly you could kind of blink and miss it, which is she said that here we go. Here's the exact quote that we just watched, right? When Jewish people die in Israel, it's wall-to-wall coverage, but when Christians die all over the world, nobody talks about it. Everyone wants to correlate everything to World War II. Everyone wants to talk about Adolf Hitler, and rightfully so. He was a horrific person. Okay, I actually do appreciate that from Candace. That was a little unclear, honestly. So she has at least.
I do want to say, like, this is just a heuristic. It's not a real argument. But if you find yourself needing to clarify your position on Hitler, I'm going to be a little suspicious. Like you've taken yourself somewhere that I don't want to go with you. That's all I'm saying. Like, and to be fair, you don't want to have to be fair. All right, but yeah.
Yeah. No, you really, if you're in like, look, a lot of people think I'm pro-Hitler. That's not true. I mean, I guess maybe I could see how they're confused, but no, I'm actually anti-Hitler. Yeah, it should. I would prefer to be in a world where that was just sort of a given, but yeah. So she did express an anti-Hitler hot take, but then immediately afterwards, the next clause, the sentence. But nobody wants to talk about Henryk Yagoda. Nobody wants to talk about the Bolsheviks. No one wants to talk about the Christian Holocaust. Okay. What she's doing here is she's picking one Stalinist official. So Genrikh, I'm probably mangling the pronunciation here. Grigorievich Yagoda. I'm looking at I've listened to Destiny, and I'm looking at the Wikipedia page. So, who was the head of what would later be called the KGB? It was then called the NKVD from 1934 to 1936. And a couple points here. One, it's a little bit funny to focus on Genrikh Yagoda here, because, like, look, the worst of the purges were actually after he was in office. I mean, I'm not saying like he was a good guy, but clearly not, right? But like, you know, if you want to talk about the horrors of the purges or whatever, the Soviet Union, the worst of that was actually after he was gone, right? So you're just picking. It's like, oh, why? That's weird.
Yeah, why would she do that? She pick them randomly, like out of a hat, or is there another?
Yeah, did she just have a hat where she had little slips of paper with all the different KGB heads in it, and she just somehow got this guy 1934 to 1936? That's weird. Like,
don't we all have that hat?
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually left mine in the storage space when I left the apartment in LA. But yeah.
No, I gave my kid their birthdays today. I gave my kid a hat with the names of all the KGB heads.
Yeah. And
you're getting to the age where you're going to need this.
Yes, they're 16. They need that hat.
Yeah. So why not like Zherevinsky? He was the original KGB head, right? Back when it was called the Cheka. He was the first one, right? Why not Beria, right? He was like the sort of most like, you know, he was maybe like definitely one of the longest serving KGB head under Stalin. He was the one who was the sort of most like notoriously depraved. Anybody who's ever watched the movie Death of Stalin, right? You know, remember the Beria stuff from there. Right? How is it that you picked the 1934 to 1936 guy? It's like, yeah, no, she literally just this is such a weird anti-Semitic deep cut, right? That's like we found the Jewish one, right? So we're gonna say we're gonna call Stalin's crimes the Christian Holocaust, and you're gonna find the one head of the KGB who came from a Jewish background.
Yeah, and I don't think he was very Jewish. I don't think he was like super Jewish or anything like that. Because I looked into it, and it's not like I think he like probably came from secular. Jewish
I'm sure he did, right? Like, I mean, God, even if he did grow up super Jewish, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. But
well, no, but I'm saying not only does it not matter like morally, but also like realistically, by the time he got to be the head of the KGB, I'll bet he was not like acting ostentatiously Jewish, right? Like, you know, just sort of given some very basic facts about Russian society.
What is ostentatiously Jewish?
Okay, now the show's going to get anti-Semitic. Well, like as we dig into the answer to that question, right? You know?
We're going to start by watching the Hebrew Hammer.
Yeah, he wasn't chewing it up. Anyway,
yeah, he wasn't chewing it up that much. You know, if there was a Genrikh Yagoda movie, Larry David would not play him.
That sounds amazing.
Like, you know, I mean, you know, and it's also kind of funny because it's like, look, Stalin himself notoriously kind of anti-Semitic, right? Yeah. Like, there are these quotes from like the faction fight with Trotsky in like the late 1920s where he's like, we fight the oppositionists not because they're Jews, but because they're oppositionists, which of course very subtly gets in the they are Jews to the sentence. He was, there was the doctor's plot, right? You know, where there was like the last purge that he was setting up, right? You know, there were like all of these Jewish doctors who were accused of being Zionists. Like, you know, again, I suppose if we take a page from Destiny and you have to compare him to other dictators in the 1930s, then not anti-Semitic at all. But like if you're going to grade in absolute terms, kind of anti-Semitic. But yeah, so you're taking the one KGB head for 2 years who is ethnically Jewish, and you're using this to frame Stalin's crimes as like the Jews committing a Holocaust against Christians. That's what she's saying right now. So doubtless, as we continue, Jimmy is about to say probably the next words out of his mouth here. Wow, Candace, that clip that we just watched was incredibly anti-Semitic. What the fuck is wrong with you?
Hate Jews.
So I started the second late, but they're laughing at the idea that she hates Jews. I think maybe I could go back like a second.
Sure.
So let's see.
In Israel. How about that?
So why do you hate Jews? So
it's just funny because this is how the media actually behaves. You say something sensible, and then it's just, well, you hate black people. Well, you hate Jews.
Just because you worship the best Jew who ever lived.
So let me ask you.
I'm sorry. I know it's been 2 seconds, but
tell me.
I got to pause on this. One, Kurt Metzger's argument just now was, how could you possibly be anti-Semitic if you're a Christian? That's a combination that's never existed.
That was a real laugh, by the way, not just an angry. Anti-Semitic?
Sir, I'll have you know I worship Jesus. So what are you talking about? Like, there's
the
never
literal best Jew. Yeah, I worship a Jew.
Yeah, the best Jew, right? Not like one of those shitty ones, but yeah, no, the best one. It's like, yeah, I'm pretty sure the overwhelming majority of anti-Semites who have ever lived have been Christians, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's a weird argument, right? So that's one. It's like, oh God, how could like Tsar Nicholas have been an anti-Semite? You know, he didn't you see that big ostentatious Russian Orthodox cross behind him? The Black Hundreds were like carrying out pogroms, and the Pale Saddle. It's like, come on, they're all Christians. What are you talking about, right? Such a smear. I hate it when the media, globalist media, is always like spuriously accusing people of being anti-Semites, even though they're Christians and thus cannot be anti-Semites.
Well, good news. I did find on Wikipedia the article "Anti-Semitism in Christianity." So.
Yeah, there we go.
It's probably a long article.
Yeah, Mercutio says, how could the KKK be anti-Semitic with that burning cross behind them? Yeah, also, okay, although ostentatiously Jewish, you still have that cursed image of Rabbi Shmuley. Okay, that's, we are...
We're never showing that again on
Everybody has spent too much time talking about that image with their therapists. That's never been shown on this channel again. But then the other thing is, I just love this transition here. Why do you hate Jews? Yeah, that is how the media is, though, right? You say, said the best Jew. I was like, oh, Adam Friedland. That is totally how the media is, right? Like, you say something sensible, like Genrikh Yagoda carried out a Holocaust of Christians, and before you know it, they're accusing you of being an anti-Semite. It's ridiculous. I mean, it's like everything is anti-Semitic now. I mean, if I say Jew banker started all the wars and the protocols of the elders of Zion is historically inaccurate, they're being called an anti-Semite. Like, you can't get out of bed without being called an anti-Semite.
Yeah.
What is Yagoda, and what happened with the Bolsheviks and the Christians?
Oh, you just casually killed 10 million Christians. It's incredible. People think that the greatest mass murderer was Adolf Hitler. And no, actually, if you want to talk about genocide, the fact that people in America don't know about what the Bolsheviks did to Christians, where did the idea of a concentration camp come from? The Bolsheviks. The reason why we're not allowed to learn about these people, we don't talk about Henryk Yagoda, is because he's a Jew, right? And so it conflicts with the narrative of Jewish people always being the victim in every single circumstance. So we're willing to push away Christian history. We don't talk about Christian history whatsoever because they have this bizarre focus, our classrooms, on training us to have this bizarre allegiance to Israel.
thought he was Russian. He's British?
Yeah. So, one, as Andy has pointed out, I think the phrase concentration camps actually comes from the Boer War, and that is the British Empire. We can thank for that. So
Yeah, and to be fair, they existed before then too. It just they
sure,
got
but
named.
that's when the term was coined, right, during the
Yes.
Boer War. It certainly existed before it, and obviously, yes, exactly, Tom. All of this is obviously way before the Russian Revolution. But I can't. Which is okay. So,
Well, the Bolsheviks are taught in school, no? And also,
yes, quite a bit.
and also, I don't think there's that much time spent on like each head of like the KGB or whatever. I don't think it's like.
Yeah, you didn't have a class in Texas where you went through all the heads of the KGB?
Yeah, I don't think that's like a conspiracy. That's really wild. That's really wild to say.
We don't have
how
the
many people?
FBI, so
How
why
many
would we
people?
have one for the
Wait, is there
KGB?
any way that he's responsible for killing more people than Hitler? That sounds absurd.
Okay, well, it is absurd. The way that people get to, and I don't know where she's coming up with that 10 million number. The sort of
She
usual.
want to do Stalin, but she's literally just doing Yagoda, or I don't know. She's conflating the two or whatever.
I think she might be conflating the two because I really like 10 million from 1934 to 1936. I mean, that's a busy 2 years, but I really don't think so. Right.
I mean, that's just a lie, right? It's just a complete.
I mean,
I
think,
and it wasn't against Christians specifically, right? That's another problem. It probably was against Christians because they happened to be Christian.
Yeah, I mean, people. So I don't know. Is she including like the famine deaths in Ukraine? Because I would think a lot of that would be earlier than Yagoda. But
I think she's maybe just saying like that in general. And then one of the people that I don't know if that's what.
Yeah, because like the usual Stalin thing is people who don't actually know any of this, but like have like seen like 3 tweets about it, right? Will say that Stalin killed 20 million people, and whereas the number that sticks in their head for Hitler is 6 million. So you say, 20 million, 6 million, but then like you're not comparing like to like here, right? So the 6 million that they're talking about is specifically Jewish people who were killed in the death camps. And like the actual number for the Holocaust as a whole is way more, right? It's like twice that. And also, of course, if you're talking about people who were like directly killed by Stalin, right? Who were like shot, right? During the Stalin years. Or even, let's say, people who die as a result of like bad conditions in the gulags. That's going to be way less than 6 million people, right? Like, it's what you have to do to count that to get the numbers up that high is, at the very least, you're talking about stuff, like famines that take place under Stalin. I think a lot of those end up being war deaths, right? So like what you have to do is like anybody who we think counterfactually would have lived, right? And of course, if you're going to do the equivalent number for Hitler, I mean, my God, right? I mean, it's like 100 million people died in the war he started, right? Like, there's just no sane comparison that's going to get you a higher. I mean, this is like the whole conversation is an extremely bad taste, right? You're doing the comparative mass death, right? But
she's forcing it because it's just like an anti-Semitic dog whistle. I mean, or not beyond dog whistle, actually.
No, I don't think
regular people can hear it.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure regular people could hear this. I'd be very worried if regular people couldn't hear this. When she was like, "Oh, what about the Holocaust to the Christians that was carried out, by Gedrich Yagoda? You know why they don't talk about that? Because he's a Jew, right? Like that's yeah, come on." So like at that point, right? I mean, that's less a dog whistle than just like calling to your dog from across the room. Right? yeah, it's a good dog. Come on, come over here. Come on. Like, and then again, it's like, okay, if you're just saying like, let's give her the number, and I would be fascinated to hear Candace sit down and explain how she got it. In fact, some of the stuff I've seen that I think comes right after this make me think that she is not actually very up on the details of this history. But if we're just going to give her made up number, right? It's like, okay, so you're saying 10 million Russian people died, and like Russian people are mostly Christians. It's like, well, if you're going to like, presumably that must be what she meant, right? Because it's like, if she, because it's not like, I mean, I'm very, very far from being a Stalin apologist, right? But it's like, it's not like anybody thinks that, like the KGB was going around being like, oh, Jew, you're fine. Muslim, you're fine. Oh, Christian, right? It's like, that's like,
if anything, Jews are probably almost definitely overrepresented, right? And the people that died. Like,
most definitely, right? So it's like, what she must mean is like, well, most of the victims are Christians because most Russians are Christians, which, by the way, is why no Russians were anti-Semites, because it's impossible to be a Christian and anti-Semite. So she's saying that most of the victims were Christians because most Russians are Christians. But let's apply 5 more seconds of thought here. The perpetrators were also Russians, which would make most of them Christians, like in the same sense, right? Like not like they were churchgoers, but like people who came from like culturally Christian backgrounds, right? Like, it's like, yeah, you don't think like, yeah, you found the one guy who was head of the KGB for 5 minutes who was Jewish. And I'm pretty sure, certainly neither of his predecessors were. Vyacheslav Menjinsky, do not trust my pronunciation of this, was the head of the KGB before Yagoda, and he and early life on Wikipedia, that V. Menjinsky, a member of the Polish nobility, was born into an Orthodox Christian Polish-Russian family of teachers. He
doesn't say that he was a big fan of bagels
So the guy who was the head of the KGB for 8 years before the 2 years that Yagoda was from a Christian background. The guy who was
but that's why in school they were obsessed with him, and then they just skipped right over that's why you were able to pronounce his name, because you learned all about him for so many years in school, right?
Yeah, obviously we all had an entire unit of class that was about Felix Dzerzhinsky, who is the founder of the KGB.
Then I raised my hand and I said, "Sir, what is his name? Yagoda?" Sir,
Genrikh Yagoda. Yeah.
Genrikh Yagoda. Oh, we're not allowed to talk about him. President's orders.
Yeah, exactly.
It's so absurd. It's just such a crazy. Oh my gosh. All right.
Dzerzhinsky was Polish. It doesn't look like he was Jewish. And again, I don't particularly think any of Yagoda's successors were. So it's like, yeah, you pick the one Jewish guy who was the head of this organization from 1934 to 1936, where presumably he oversaw an apparatus of people who were overwhelmingly not Jewish. and yes, whose victims were almost certainly disproportionately Jewish, like just like running the numbers here about like how many like Soviet dissidents would have been Jewish, like realistically, right? Like given the history with the left opposition and all that stuff. This is
because he also purged a lot of former Bolsheviks, which is what her whole thing is, talking about the Bolsheviks, right? Like that was a big part of who he was killing. Anyway.
Yeah. This is I mean, right, of course. I mean, this is the initial victims of the purges, right? Those were all like old Bolsheviks. Like this is in fact the majority of the original membership of the Bolshevik Party. ended up getting purged. But whatever. Maybe this is going to get saner if we keep watching.
And so to suit us, I feel that we are heavily propagandized in the classroom. And the reason why I feel that way is because we spend years talking about the Holocaust, only for me to learn when I'm out of school about a bigger Holocaust that took place at the exact same time. We were locking arms with Stalin. I mean, you read Alexander Solzhenitsyn talking about the gulags and who built those gulag systems, who created those gulag systems. The majority of them, he eventually wrote a book, were Jewish men. And of course, this has not become collective guilt. Doesn't mean all Jews are Bolshevik.
Oh yeah, you know how U.S. schools famously have no anti-Russia, anti-Stalinist slant or angle to them. You know what I mean? Because that would, because of so many, because that would be too pro-Jewish.
Yeah, exactly. This is
really sick stuff.
Yeah, no, I mean, yes. Famously, I'm sure one thing we could all agree on, as we recall, different states, all this stuff. But as we recall our history and social studies classes growing up, is that like a bad word was never spoken about communism.
Yeah. It's just incoherent. I mean, I wonder where her claim is that these were built by Jewish men, also that the gulags were built by Jewish men. Based on her other track record, on her track record so far, I'm not sure I trust her on that claim.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, Solzhenitsyn is an interesting poll because I never heard about him until I was listening to a band called Moxie Fruvis that actually sang a line rhyming him with now get back in that kitchen.
Fair enough. Okay. We were talking about doing 45 minutes. We're over an hour. So,
but I want to finish and then
I want to do like 2.5 more minutes, but we don't have to pause again until it's done.
Okay.
And think this way, but the fact that I'm denied the right to talk about my history while you demand I talk about yours, and you demand that I worship Israel,
the right to talk about communism.
I'm sick and tired of the subjugated Christian. I'm sick and tired of the tail in between your leg Christian that is like Israel first, and then I'll get to the New Testament. It doesn't make any sense to me. I'm uncomfortable with it, and that was probably the first time in that entire interview that Piers shut up. Because he knows I'm right. It's utterly ridiculous to come to a Christian and say, have you used your platform to talk about Israel? Do you think that he would go to a Jewish person and say, have you used your platform to talk about Armenia? And if the answer is no, then why not? It's because what has happened is that it's not an equal system. No, it's not equality. They are treated, Israel as a country is treated with special interests. And I got to say about Israel, just looking at the history there, I mean, this is our greatest ally, as they say. That's the program. This is our greatest ally. I mean, with allies like that, who needs enemies, right? In terms of the things that they have been involved in historically, no one wants to talk about the USS Liberty. With allies like this, who needs enemies? I am tired of being involved in their crap. I'm America first. I won't apologize for it. I'm Christianity first. I won't apologize for it. And that upsets some people because I guess how dare she have the audacity? Well, guess what? I have the audacity, folks.
So you're saying that there was a greater Holocaust of Christians that happened, and it was committed by the Bolsheviks, and the leader of them at the time was a Jewish guy.
Well, Henry Yagoda, what really ran the Gulag camp system. So people should read, if you're interested, Alexander Solzhenitsyn talking about how shocking it was to watch the American president linking arms with Stalin, talking about we're putting an end to the Holocaust in World War II. And Stalin was still mass killing Christians in Russia. I mean, it's an absolute nonsense. And you got to take it back all the way. The Bolshevik Revolution happened. They assassinated the Tsar, I think, in 1880. And then by the time they actually properly took over, I think it was around 1910. And so what was going on in Russia at that time was they immediately took over. They started a gulag system, concentration camps, where they were mass drowning Christians in barges. And this information is readily available, and yet you never learn about it. And people don't want to talk about it. It makes them very uncomfortable.
Well, I didn't hear about it until I heard you talk about it.
Yeah, Henry Yagoda, look him up. It's stunning. I mean, he must have killed alone 15 million people. And this is a person that's not even spoken about.
What?
And so that's the reason why Piers just goes, okay, yeah, no, okay, let's move on to the next point. So in my viewpoint, the Israeli government has way too much involvement with the American government. And part of that, this program, and you saw this after October 7th, Congress immediately passed that there would be we would be learning about October 7th in schools as if it was like Pearl Harbor, right? A day that will live in infamy. Why? This is not my country. That's a nonsense. And if the answer is, because it's a day that should live in infamy, why just Israel? Why just Israel?
Right.
Why not also what's happening in Armenia or happening in Nigeria or happening all over the world? Why not a day that will live in infamy? Russia actually just went through a terror attack, and Russia has a lot of Christians. I'm Christian. So if we can just start drafting over days of terror that happen on the basis of our religion, I'd like to draft what just happened in Russia. I want my kids to learn about that in school.
Go ahead, Kurt.
Hey, so you said the thing about concentration camps. I thought the Cecil Rhodes, Boer War concentration camps came first.
Hey, Kurt comes in with some knowledge.
The last bit.
The Boer War in South Africa when Cecil Rhodes, the architect of apartheid that Israel uses,
what year was that?
Like in 1889 or something, I thought.
It could have been. You might be right. I know that. I think the Gulag system was particularly evil.
Okay, it is beautiful that we got to the point that Candace learned something from Kurt Metzger of all people. Who knew?
Hey, he has a Peabody Award.
Yeah, this is. So a couple things here that are just fun about the history. One, did I hear her right that she said, because it really sounded like she was saying the Bolsheviks killed the Tsar in 1880?
1880, she said, yes.
That's what I caught.
I'm no scholar of Russian history, but I don't think it was 1880.
No, so
this is readily available information.
You can just watch that movie.
You can get it right on the Jimmy Dore show.
Yeah. Oh my God, I love Jimmy being like, "Oh, I never knew that until you just said it." I was like, "Oh, Jesus Christ." Okay, yeah, yeah, you still don't, Jimmy. You still don't know it. But yeah. So she's got her wires crossed. There is a czar who was assassinated in 1881, but that guy was not killed by the Bolsheviks because they didn't exist yet, like for a long time after that. The Russian Social Democratic Labor Party was founded in 1898, and then like a couple years after that, it split into Bolshevik and Menshevik factions. Right? So she's about 20 years too early for the Bolsheviks even being a thing. Never mind, like being like a, particularly important factor in anything, right? Which is way after that. So I think she heard something about a czar being assassinated in 1881. And so she almost remembered that, but then I think she put it together with the like Tsar Nicholas II being killed during the Russian Revolution and after he was overthrown in 1917. That's the best I've got there. She was also talking about Christians being drowned from barges, and there she's in entirely the wrong revolution in the wrong country. So once again, the idea that anybody who's being drowned for being a Christian is just not historically accurate anyway, but she's thinking of the French Revolution, right? That's where they had like the French revolutions where people were taken out in barges and like drowned as like a form of mass execution at one point. That's what she's thinking of. Again, not for being Christians, right? But for being like allegedly counter-revolutionaries or whatever, right? Like so she's got her French and Russian revolutions mixed up, which is also particularly bad because, come on. Even if you want to say that, the Russian Revolution was a globalist plot, far fewer globalists running around Paris in 17. 1780. Like she's not allowed to talk about this stuff. Like somebody's stopping her from talking about Stalin's crimes.
It's baffling. Everything she said has been just absolutely baffling.
I mean,
Last
15
comment about
million-
this.
That's
Yeah. No, go.
Well, no, I mean, so there was a great purge while Yagoda was ahead. You know, like, I don't think this was a good person. There was
Sure.
maybe 1 million people killed. 15 million is pretty wild. Also, personally attributing it to him is pretty wild. Also, he was purged at the end of this great I don't think he was the architect of the whole thing. He was purged by Stalin as well. But 15, it's just really wild to throw out, because their whole thing is like, it was worse than the Holocaust. 15 million people. It's literally just based on nothing. I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah. Also, I'm pretty sure that Piers Morgan didn't stop talking when she brought up Genrikh Yagoda and the Holocaust of Christians, because he knew she was right. I'm pretty sure Piers didn't like address that part of her comments because he had no idea what the fuck she was talking about.
I think he also concerned that if he chimed in, it would just. Yeah, she's going down some pretty scary rabbit holes, I think, of probably some solid anti-Semitic forums or friends, or I don't know. It's pretty frightening. That was a little bit less lighthearted than I thought.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know.
Stuff.
I've talked to a lot of weird people over the last 5 or 6 years, been doing this, and if somebody says something like that and you have no idea what they're talking about, you don't generally bring everything screeching to halt. Be like, wait, tell me more about. What did you say, Henrik Yagoda? Right, you just keep moving and probably address the whatever you were talking about before that.
Yeah, fair.
Okay, less funny than I thought it would be, but also kind of amazing. And my God, fucking Jimmy Dore. I mean, this is I don't know. I mean, back when we were making fun of him on TMBS in 2019, I mean, he was an idiot, but he seemed to have recognizable sort of normal leftist views. He was just just in kind of a ridiculous form. But this is oh wow, tell me more about that. Hear the most insane bullshit ever. Oh wow, I didn't know that. It's this is the that I think I mentioned this the other week, the Father Ted episode where Ted makes friends with some old guy on the island, and he takes him to this back room that's just full of Nazi memorabilia, and it's huge swastika flags hanging from everything, and Ted is kind of at a loss for what to say. He's well, they do say people get more conservative when they get older. It's man, Jimmy, just you can stop it just being a Republican. We don't need to get into Genrikh Yagoda and the Holocaust, the communist Holocaust against Christians.
Yeah. Well, I hopefully when the people Google it she's instructed us to, hopefully for her sake, we'll find the same racist 4chan conspiracy theorists that she found, because otherwise if they just look up this information on for instance on Destiny's favored research tool Wikipedia, they're not going to find the same information as her.
Yeah, I mean, this is that's the funny thing about it too, right? It's not just hey, those people, run the media and the Hollywood movies or whatever. It's not just normal anti-Semitism. This is some extremely deep cut anti-Semitism.
You
have been watching free public content from Give Them an Argument. To access every single episode of the show, the main show on Monday nights, all of the streams, all of the debate breakdowns, all of the patron-exclusive postgames on Monday nights, all of the patron-exclusive bonus episodes every week, and much, much more, go to patreon.com/Ben Burgis. I cannot resist ending this with, don't be foolish.